Hello and welcome. Welcome back. If you saw last week, by the way, you might want to look at last week's video, which is up here somewhere or also in the description below, because this is part two about muscle Carmageddon. Is this the end time for muscle cars? I think there's hope. Last week I gave you all the bad stuff. Today I'll give you some of the good stuff, and maybe Dodge is a special case for reasons I will shortly explain. Stick around. Okay, this is a quick summary of last week if you don't want to go back and watch. Basically, the external forces working to eliminate the muscle car from modern memory are rising gas prices, although if you go watch the video, the projections are they're not going to go up that much, but I don't trust projections. Uh, Everybody drives trucks and SUVs now, so cars are basically going away. Ford is essentially just throwing in the towel on cars. The Mustang is going to be the only car they make. It's all going to be all trucks. They have the CAFE standards, the corporate average fuel economy, which will be a problem that, again, Dodge may dodge, pun intended, for reasons I'll explain shortly. Carbon footprints, the EP enforcement actions trying to get rid of people scooping up their cars causing more pollution. But the main thing that has been driving this and the predictions of doom for muscle cars are the falling demand and sales. And I think this is where Dodge can really dodge the bullet, as it were. Let me explain. Couple of quick things to get you up to speed. Okay, first thing in economics you need to know, and you probably know this just instinctively, even if you've never studied economics, the more you make of something, the cheaper it becomes to make. This is why, like, TVs over time get so much cheaper. You know, the new big screen TV comes out, it's $20,000, and then 5 years later, it's $400 at Walmart. And then the new version comes out and it's $20,000, and 5 years later, it's $500 at Walmart. This is because of economies of scale. They learn how to do it. They have fewer defects, and there's lots of reasons. You can go study some economics. But just understand, the more you make of something, the cheaper they are to make, which means your profit can go up, right? Because your costs are going to go down over time. Now, there's a second related thing that a lot of people don't study in economics that you ought to know about, and it's called economies of scope. And this is where, and this complicated mathematical formula up here says, the cost of producing products A and products B together is less than the cost of producing A and the cost of producing B separately. And then I have some charts here from economics where you can see that if there's no economies of scope, you're going to get a flat line, and then you get the bowed line. But anyway, just remember, producing things together can make them cheaper. One of the things that can make things cheaper, one of the economies of scope, comes from common inputs, like using the same parts, using the same engines, using the same door handles. Yeah, I think you might see where I'm going in relation to Dodge here if you've been paying attention. So, there is the slide from last time. I think it was one of the last slides about muscle car sales. And I showed that while the Mustang, the orange line, has a nice, after the refresh in 2014, had a nice spike. It's dropped back off. The Camaro has continued to plummet even after a refresh in 2015. Dodge had a little refresh 2014. Essentially, the Challenger has looked the same as it has for a long time. But again, sales have stayed relatively flat. I mean, they're not falling, like, not nearly as much as the Mustang and the Camaro. But that's not the thing that's that important right now. Let's look at when we put the Charger and the Challenger together. Now all of a sudden, they sell way more than the Camaro and the Mustang. Now remember, the Charger is a four-door sedan, but it's the same basic structure. It's the same set of engines available. It's basically, I think they call it the fastest sedan. You know, the Hellcat, Charger Hellcat is the fastest sedan you can buy, or the most powerful sedan. You know, it's got like over 700 horsepower. So you can buy Chargers with 500, 700, 800 horsepower. And they use a lot of the same parts, a lot of the same suspension, a lot of the same engines, a lot of all the same costs. So the cost that Ford incurs in making Mustangs, well, they spread those, especially fixed costs like retooling and refreshing. They spread that over, what was that? I'm looking at the thing. In 2014, it was 80,000 units. It spiked up to 120,000. But Charger and Challenger together, it's 160,000. It's almost double, especially more recently. It's almost double. So they're spreading their costs over way more units. Oh, and they're doing fewer refreshes. And refreshes cost money. A refresh can cost hundreds of millions of dollars. And if it's a major refresh, like where they change a lot of body panels, it can cost up to $1 billion. Now you have to spread that over the cars you're going to make after that. But again, look at the sales figures. The Charger and Challenger are showing that they can sustain sales even without refreshes. People keep buying them. This gives Dodge a big leg up over Mustang. Well, we know the Mustang is going to be down. They're going to electric. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then the Camaro is essentially everybody's written it off and says it's going away. Now, of course, Chevrolet still has the Corvette, but it's much smaller sales. Here are the muscle car sales as a percent of the total brand sales. So as you can see, the Camaro has never broken 5%. Chevy sales have always been less than 5% Camaros. Mustangs have broken 5%, it looks like back in 2010, but since then, Mustang sales have never been more than 5% of Ford sales. Then look at that green line. The Challenger, when it came out, when it was new, the first models 2008, 2009, it was already above 5%. After the refresh in 2014, look, it jumps up to 12, 13, 14, 15. And now in 2020, it was 20% of Dodge's sales. Now, by the way, remember, the chart we were just looking at before this, that was Challenger and Charger. This is just Challenger. Let's look at muscle car sales with Challenger plus Charger. Now you see, again, Camaro, Mustang, always 5% or under. But now when we add Challenger and Charger, we're looking at 25 to 30, and then in 2015 it passes 30, and then in 2019 it passes 40, and in 2020 it hits almost 50% of Dodge's sales are Challengers and Chargers. Now, if you were going to predict which of these cars were going to cease production in the near future, as I said, we've already said Camaro is the most likely because basically Chevy's almost admitted that they're going to do it. Mustang is also likely, especially from a brand that is getting away from cars altogether. But do you think Dodge is going to stop making the cars that are 50% of their sales, of the brand sales? No. More to the point, let's think about some other of these issues. Now, that's one thing. So the falling sales is not going to be the thing that kills the Charger and the Challenger. But let's look at those engine sizes, because this calls in one of those other forces, right, which was the CAFE standards, the corporate average fuel economy. Look at, and this, I only have these numbers for 2019. I can only find them for 2019. But look at the V6 is almost all of the sales of Challengers and Chargers were the V6 model. It was 120,000 of them. The 5.7 Hemi is 46,000. The 6.4 Hemi, we're down to 30,000. The Hellcat, we're down under 5,000. And the Red Eye, we're down to 3,700. By the way, did they not have red eyes in 2019 for the Charger, or did the place I got these numbers from just didn't know them? Whatever. But if you think about fuel economy, the V6 is the best fuel economy of any of these engines, and it's most of the sales. Well over half. The Hemi, the 5.7 Hemi, gets decent mileage. It's not good, but it's not great. Now, the 6.4 Hemi, the one I drive, the 392, the one I drive, if you're not, you can get 20, you can push 20, 25 miles a gallon if you drive it sanely, but of course no one who has one of these cars drives it sanely. So you're looking more like 15, and the same with the Hellcat and the Red Eye, 15 and under. But again, OC Motivator, I'll put a link below. I'll put a little thing up here. He just published a thing about how he's using his Hellcat as a daily driver, and he's gotten it up over 20 miles a gallon, and he explains how he does it in this video, also down below. So 20, 30 miles a gallon for the big engines, and then the little engine, the V6, gets above 30 miles a gallon. All of a sudden, it's not this. The Challenger and Charger are not such a big hit on the CAFE standards for Dodge. Boom. So we knock out another external force. What? And by the way, this is across the internet. Here's a list of all the performance coupes. By the way, if you go back, look at my channel, when I was shopping for cars, when I ended up picking the Challenger, it was because I was looking at performance coupes. And I wanted a coupe, and I wanted performance, and I wanted it not to be too expensive. And adaptive cruise control. I had to have adaptive cruise control. Well, all these ones towards the bottom, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, were too expensive. Even stripped down, they were more than what I paid for my really loaded Challenger 392 Scat Pack. That's what I was looking for. They were even more loaded than my Scat Pack. Now, let's look at another list. Let's look at all the performance coupes that have essentially four-door versions of them, and you will discover. Well, I'll preview. The Mustang, the Camaro, and the Corvette are all going to disappear off of this chart. All the rest are going to remain because they all have four-door versions that are available, which, by the way, outsell the two-door version often by 10 times. Much great. Well, you saw with the Charger and Challenger, it was closer. It wasn't like, the Charger sold like double what the Challenger sells. But in some of these others, it's like 5, 10 times. But they all have two-door versions. They all have economies of scope. So that the cost of producing those two-door versions, those performance coupes, when they're already producing the performance sedans, does not add enough cost. So even with the lower sales, you can justify the cost. All of these companies have done it. Mercedes, Audi, BMW have been doing it. Multiple lines, multiple sizes, all sorts of stuff. And the Challenger and Charger have been doing it since 2008, 2009. And it works. And Chevy and Ford have never had that. And that is why those are the cars, the muscle cars that are doomed. And don't forget, hope springs eternal, but don't forget electric cars. Now, the fastest acceleration these days are the electric cars. You can go on YouTube and watch hundreds of things where Teslas smoke Hellcats and other high performance cars. Well, look now at the bottom here. The Tesla Model S Plaid, over 1,000 horsepower, 200 miles an hour top end, 0 to 60 in under 2 seconds. No, well, under 2 seconds. 1.99, that is 2 seconds. But 2 seconds. You look at the Chargers, and most of them are like 3-4 seconds. So these are really fast electric cars. But Audi is already doing it, and the others are going to start doing it too. The performance cars are starting to add electric motors. So they're keeping their gasoline engines, but now they're also, so you have your 300 horsepower gasoline engine, but now you put another 100 horsepower on each wheel with electric motors, and now you've got a 700 horsepower car, except without the bad mileage of a 700 horsepower car like the Hellcat. So it ain't over till it's over. And to quote my cousin Tommy, who said, as long as there's a redneck with a screwdriver, muscle cars will never die. So hang in there. They're going to be around for a while. And by the way, even if they stop making them, again, go back to cousin Tommy's thing, we'll be able to restore them. There's people restoring the 1970s versions of these muscle cars today. Well, years from now, there will be people restoring whatever the last few years of Charger and Challengers were. They'll keep them running for years and years to come. And we know that can be done because of Cuba, because they kept all those cars from the 1950s that are still running on the streets of Cuba today. So we know it can be done. So as long as there's a redneck with a screwdriver, muscle cars will not die. That's it for this video. I will see you next week. Hopefully, I'll have my car back from the shop. They have diagnosed it. There's some problem with the manifold. Something's leaking in the intake manifold. Anyway, they're working on it. They've got the parts on order. So hopefully I'll have my car back. If not, I'll have some alternative. Not this good. This was a good one. At least I think so. Anyway, so y'all go. You have a great week. I'll come back. See me next time. And don't worry about your muscle cars. They're not going away anytime soon unless you really love the Camaro or the Mustang, in which case you might want to go out and buy one soon. Anyway, see you in the next one.